Hey, what's up? I am Greg, the creator of Superhero Coding, and today we're going to keep going with our Game of the Month project. It's going to be a Space Invaders Galaga type game. I'm leaning more towards Galaga than Space Invaders, and you'll see why. Today we're going to work on the boss movement, get that working a little bit better, so it's not just looping around, picking up where last one left off. And you can always get this code for everything at superherocoding.com. And first week's code and art assets are always free. Art assets, we got something cool coming up for you this month. But for now, that's not going to be this lesson. It's probably going to be the next one. For now, let's just jump right into the code. So I'm going to switch over to Unity, and I'm going to switch over to that view there. All right. This is exactly where we left off last time. November 2023, Galaga 02. There's our current scene. I'm going to duplicate that with Control D on the PC or Command D on the Mac. And that does not show up in the list of right-click options, but it works. You can also just copy and paste. So I've got number 3. I duplicated it. Now I need to make sure I double-click it to go into it, and I'll verify up here, Galaga 03. So that's what I want. So yeah, get me closer to Galaga than Space Invaders. Galaga, the bosses or the enemies fly down, they shoot at you and stuff like that. I think that's a little more interesting than, Space Invaders was revolutionary for its time, but Galaga expanded on that idea, Galaxian first and Galaga, quite a bit. So we're going to do something like that. I'm going to hit play just to refresh everybody where we left off. While I drink coffee, right now the boss is moving, and I can hit the space bar, and it will make a note. We've got our death wall up here. That when bullets hit that, they go away. We've got some messages that said, "Hey, we hit bullet player clone." Blah blah blah. This is somewhat useful, but not really. I'll go ahead and turn the mesh renderer back off. Looks like a mothership came down over New York and just covered everything in shadow, but that's not important right now. So the boss code is super simplistic. Well, one thing at a time. Let's change this a little bit. We just hit blah blah blah. This is useful, except this death on touch script right now it's here, but it could be in other places as well. The bullet code doesn't have anything like that. Guess if it's just in death on touch, what you could do, I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to say, add a couple spaces in there and do game object with a little g. Game object with a big G is the general class game object. Game object with a little g means the object this script is currently attached to. That's a key thing to remember. And again, we're kind of building our components. Every script that you build and add onto a game object is like a component. So give me the game object. I think I've got to go transform name. I could probably just do gameObject.name. And then plus, and then I'll put a couple of colons just to kind of distinguish. This is what it is. This is what it happened. I'm gonna just copy all that and replace it there. So what that's going to do, and for now, that's going to say death wall. We just hit player bullet clone. And that's not necessarily super useful at the moment because that's the only thing the script is on. But that's going to help us later when we're doing some other things. See, death wall, we just hit player clone. But if I hit that boss, well, the boss doesn't have it on there. The boss could have it on there. So if the boss had the same script, death on touch, then let's see if I can hit the boss. Surely I can. And so I can type in boss. And so typing it in here will filter all of the results to just show whatever you typed in. Since I know the name of that object is boss there. So here it's telling me whenever a bullet hits the boss, otherwise it's telling me it hits the death wall. So that's where that becomes useful. And once you really get a hold of this concept of I can build my own components and I can programmatically change just about any component that's on a game object, everything opens up. You'll hear me say that a lot because that is really significant. Once you learn, not only can I programmatically change all this stuff and add these components if I want, I can make my own, I can change all this stuff through code. Everything in Unity opens up after that. So I'm going to leave that alone for now. The Space Boss, right now, crazy simple script. Needed more coffee. All right. So we get the local position of the game object that this script is attached to. That's going to be significant later. And we get the X, the current X position. Vector, current position is the X, Y, and Z. We want the X. And then we're going to say if the current X is less than our min X, then current X equals max X. And then the opposite, if current X is greater than max X, current X equals min X. And that's a great place to start. It goes over here, it goes off the screen, it loops around. It looks like, the numbers are a little bit big for the view I've got, but I mean, that's the thing too, as I like shift this around, full screen would be very different than kind of what I've got now, but I'm gonna do something like this. And I can see things in the scene view and the game view. I like having those side by side. So I'm doing that. I'm checking that out. I think what I want the boss to do, at the very least, is when he hits the end, rather than popping out on the other side. That's great if you're making a Flappy Bird game like we did last month, where you've got obstacles that you want to keep looping. To give the player a constant challenge. But I think something like this, I do actually kind of want to do a little bit of a Space Invaders thing. So what I'm going to do instead, watch this. Current X, max X. I'm going to do, so we've got this speed variable, right? Well, let's just move speed equals move speed times -1. I'm going to put that in both places. You remember your math, anything times -1 becomes the negative version of it. So when the current X, if it goes over and it hits 10, we do that, then the move speed is going to be negative. So it's going to be adding that negative number. So yeah, watch this. Hit play, if I've done my job right. Yeah, see over there? So now it's hitting the end and it's backing up. And these numbers are still a little high. I'm gonna make that like 8. Oops. And -8. Something like that. So that's a little better. That's kind of moving back and forth closer to just being in my scene. I like that. All right, so I'm going to do 8 and -8 instead of those. We could even add something in. Let's do this. Let's add in a public Boolean and say random reversal. Sounds exciting. And a default value of false. Now, public variables show up in inspectors. Some people say it's bad coding practice. I don't care. I talked about that a lot in last month's video. At the level we're at the level I'm teaching you, it does not matter until you get to be part of a team and other people are jacking with your code in ways they shouldn't. Public variables just don't matter. They don't. So random reversal, by adding a default value here, now every time I add this script to a new object, it's going to have that value. This is super useful if you've got a bunch of objects that already have this script and you don't want to just do, random reversal, which is just going to add it, and it'll add, the default value of whatever that is. But let's say, this is firing speed instead. If I just add that, I'm going to have to go into every single one of those in the inspector and give it a firing speed, which is going to be a pain in the butt. But if I do, if I give it a default value of 5, of course it would have to be a float. If I do that, then every time I add the script to something, it's going to have a default value of 5. So all those existing objects, I don't have to do anything. It has a default value. So default values can be super helpful for that reason. But for now, we're going to do a bool called random reversal. I'm going to assume that I had this script in other places, or by default, I don't want it to do this. But I've got something in mind where I will want it to do it sometimes. So let's do a, it's going to be private. Yep. And I'm going to say, do reverse. And then I'm going to make start if random reversal equals true, because 1 equal sign is assignment, 2 equal sign is checking one value against the other. If random reversal is true, so if this box is checked, then invoke repeating, so this is a new command, invoke repeating will, if you mouse over it'll tell you, it will invoke something repeatedly. You give it the method name, the time delay before you want to start, and how often. So my method name is going to be do reverse, and I'll say 0, and I'll say 3F. So if random reversal is true, then we're going to invoke the repeating of this do reverse, start it immediately, no delay, do it every 3 seconds. So every 3 seconds, as long as this is checked in the beginning. So if I put this in update, then I could turn that on at any point. I don't need that. I'm going to define this at the beginning or not. So invoke repeating, do reverse, blah, blah, blah. And what that's going to do is this is going to say, if random range, I always forget. One of them's deprecated, one of them's not. If random range 0 to 10 is less than 5, then move speed equals move speed times -1. So hopefully you follow that logic. What it's going to do is, if this is checked, random reversal is checked on an object, then every 3 seconds, you've got a 50-50 chance of reversing the speed. So Pac-Man's original Ghosts did something like this, where they would get to a corridor and they would potentially move. No, I didn't have it checked. So, all right. So now after 1, 2, 3, it could potentially reverse directions. I should probably put a debug log in there so that we see that it's checking, and here's the result, because it doesn't seem, oh, there it is. There it went. And of course it was off screen. So, okay, maybe we want that every second. Every second, there's a 50-50 chance that it's going to reverse direction. I guess a second, in the grand scheme of things, is a long time. Sort of. So hit that. Now every second, it could reverse. That could be good for me. That could be bad for me. That definitely adds some variability. The second is probably too high, I'm seeing, because it's reversing and reversing a lot. I would probably also want to clean this up so it's not off the screen quite as much. But it definitely has a lot more of an interesting movement pattern than the original boss did. So do a couple of things here. I'm going to come out of that before we move on to the next piece. Let's go ahead. So what we've got here, we've got a tiny 3D space. It's perspective. I think I want to make this orthographic. That's going to give us, in perspective versus orthographic, you can look that up. Basically, it's going to turn everything into kind of a 2D version. If you're over here and you hit the 2D button, that is all orthographic now. Now I can still Alt left click. Nope, you can turn that off. Move around. They've changed that, I guess. But what we want to do over here in the camera, and you're welcome to keep it perspective. Orthographic is just going to kind of give me a little more room on the screen for what comes next. So switch it from perspective to orthographic, and immediately, well, you don't see the floor anymore because it's super thin. But we can, we could crank that up higher. Oh, it's probably too close, and so it's clipping. If I move it out, yeah, there we see it now. I'll leave a little shadow there. We'll see why not. Now, if I hit play, I mean, everything works the same, but now it's a little more interesting. But now I've also got kind of some defined edges around there. So the boss is definitely moving much more erratically, which is good. That's what you want. So, all right, I'm going to save that. So this just gives us a little more room to work with. So now I can take the player and the floor and move them down more. Put a black background in here. We've got more of a spacey kind of a feel. I'll just do that. So I'm going to Control D to duplicate the floor, move that out, hit E to rotate like we talked about, because W, E, and R. After a while, it just becomes pretty instinctive, and you can see the widgets as you move through W, E, and R. And I'm going to take that, and I'm going to duplicate that material and call this space background. It's not going to be a fancy space background at all. It's going to be dark, not completely, but sort of a dark blue. That was close enough. Put that in there. That's too bright for space. So, and some of that's the lighting, but that's fine. This. So, still kind of bright. It's because of the directional light. Directional light is like a sunlight. So it is always going to make things pretty bright. So turn that off entirely, then everything else gets too dark. We'll just run with this like this. That's fine. I may end up taking the floor out later. I don't know. So we've got this. I can shoot. My death wall is still high enough. You want to make sure when you switch that your death wall is not here, because things are different in perspective. If you need to change kind of the zoom level, so the camera has switched to these lines going all the way out to infinity. If I want to expand the amount of space I've got to work with here, the size is the function that you want to change. So we were at 5, did something like even something like that would still be a lot higher. So I guess my death wall is hitting up there. That's not bad. So I'm in play mode, so I want to go over here. 6.2. Okay. We'll go back to that. 6.2. I'm going to move my space background up a little bit. Probably going to end up taking out the floor because, again, like a Galaga game, there's no floor. You're shooting at a boss. The boss up a little bit. Turn my death wall back on. Make sure it's So yeah, I want that just outside of view. Turn that back off, at least the mesh renderer. Rename this to be space background. So it's interesting. The boss needs to shoot back, obviously. Player bullet. This is a good start. We've got a move speed of 18. If we duplicate that to move it over to the boss, and then I'm going to turn it on just so we can see it. Now, when you duplicate an object, it starts wherever you duplicate it. Let me just undo that and redo that. So I'm going to turn this on. If I hit F to focus in, we can see it's right there. If I pick it here, I duplicate, and I move it to the boss, it's still right there. So I'm going to call this boss bullet. The other thing that I can do, though, is once I move it to be the parent or the child of this parent object instead, come over here and do 0, 0, 0, and that is going to now focus it where the boss is. And player is blue, then boss should be red, right? Orange, and superhero coding colors. I'll have to call them orange. It's more of a reddish orange, but it's fine. I just want to be able to distinguish things and then drag it here. Oh, not floor material, orange. There we go. All right, and then I want to turn these back off because if you remember, we spawn them and then we instantiate and then we activate so that our original does not go away. Because if we're trying to instantiate this and this hits the death wall and goes away, then we're going to have a whole bunch of errors and no more bullets. So boss now will need that same kind of code. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. I'm going to duplicate number 3 to number 4, double click on that just to be there because I like to have different versions. It's also, you know, you can kind of see some of the progression of things. So our boss needs to be able to shoot, but it does not need to shoot when the space bar is fired, right? You don't want that. Space boss ought to be able to shoot anytime. So to copy over the code, we need the bullet, which we'll just drop in right there. Geo bullet. I mean, it is still a game object. I'm just going to call it enemy bullet anyway. It's fine. And then we don't want the spacebar code. I'm going to copy that. It could still be geo bullet. Not important. Go back to space boss. And what we want to do is every so often we want them to shoot. So we could do something here like invoke repeating boss shooting 0f 0.4f. So every 4/10 of a second. That might be too fast. 1 second's going to be too slow. Let's make it a float. Public. Well, but then, yeah, we'll be fine. Boss shooting speed equals 0.4f. Put that there. Then I need a function called boss shooting, which needs to match the case of this. Then I need that code that I had over here. I just hit Control Tab, which is a common Windows key, which also works on Mac to switch to the last thing I was on. And boss shooting. Of course, I renamed it because, of course, I did. Enemy bullet. Enemy bullet assigned. Log firing a bullet. Instantiate enemy bullet. And blah blah blah. If I take this, you know what? Let's do that. Let's do that just to see. Equals game object transform. So in the last one, we did this to be null. That's what we want in Space Player. Here, if I make the transform, if I set the transform parent to the current game object, watch. Right, the other thing we need to do is we need to adjust the speed. And by speed, I mean the bullet. We want it to be -18 instead. All right, hit and play. Now, no enemy bullet assigned. Look, it worked. Was that intentional? Well, no, it was not. Go. Let's get ahead of myself. I get excited about things. All right. So there, the boss is shooting. That's what. So you see, all of these are. They are now children of this object. That means when this object moves, they move. So that erratic movement, gonna factor it in a little more. Now, it hit the floor and destroyed it. But the other thing that we want to have here is we want a death wall. We got a death wall on top. And we want to duplicate that and say this is the death wall on the bottom. And turn on the mesh renderer so I can see it. Move it down. Why can I not move it down? Hit it. There we go. All right. And again, move it just off the screen. Doesn't have to be off, but I'll leave it off. All right. Pop back over here. Ask, how's everybody going? How's everybody doing? Hey, Dragger. Dragger TN. All right. Got the user. So I hope this is helpful. We're not done. We're not done. Don't go anywhere. We're not done. The thing I want to, my goal in these is to make these a little bit different each time. Galaga has a boss at the top that spawns enemies that come down and shoot at you or just try to run into you. I think that's an interesting mechanic. We've still got a twist in mind for all this, and we are going to, one of my friends, he and I are going to get together in VR, a program called Gravity Sketch. We're going to sketch out the boss and the ship. So this one is not actually going to have programmer art. So more lesson to come shortly, but just wanted to say, if you, the way all this works, you're free to watch the YouTube lessons. You are free to follow along and do everything I do. If you want the art assets and the code, then you go to superherocoding.com and sign up. The first lesson of the month, the art and code is always free. For the other lessons, it's $30. And then you get all updates for that month, that one project, forever. At the end of the month, the price goes up a lot. So it's good to follow along with the series, catch these when they're live. And that's why. And so that if you decide you do want the cool VR things we're doing, you can get them at a huge discount before the month's over. I do one a week, still working out the day and time, but I'm trying to do these in a way that helps people see you can have a short, you don't have to put hundreds of hours into a project to call it complete. Last month's project, Flappy Bird game, is simple. It's Flappy Bird. Is it perfect? No. Could it be released? Yeah, if you wanted to. This one, it's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be simple and it's going to be complete. By watching these, by following along, you're going to start learning the game loops. You're going to start learning the managers. You're going to start anticipating what I'm going to do. And that's the point where you have learned that superpower of bringing an idea to life in a game. That's what superhero coding is all about. All right. Having said all that, let's just get back to the code. I mean, that's where I'm more comfortable anyway. All right, taking a drink of coffee. So now we've got our boss and our boss bullet. So yeah, guided missiles. This was kind of a big deal in the original Atari version. And so you see these kind of hopping up and then going away. Did they destroy my bottom death wall? They did. That is rude. Okay. So my bullets shouldn't be. Oh, I don't need to pin it. I don't know. I'll look at that later. Should not be destroying the bottom. It hits the floor. It hits that. Not sure why it is destroying. Not sure why it's destroying a death wall when it hits that, because it should be destroying the other game object unless that is making a collision within a collision. If my death wall... does the boss have the death on touch? It does. Okay. The bullets. Okay, so we hit floor, we hit death wall. So that's where, okay, so what it's doing, and this is the beauty of game development, and I don't rehearse these, you know, that's probably really obvious if you watch long, but I want to do this so you get to see how I think. I want you to learn to think like a game developer. I want you to see what game development actually looks like. Because if I had 4 hours to make a game, I could make a game. It'd look like Flappy Bird or Galaga Clone or any of the other ones that I've got in mind for the coming months. Does not have to be a significant thing. So what's happening is it's because these are children of the boss object. Think. I'm going to test that theory. So it's good to fix bugs. It's way better to fix bugs knowing why you were having the issue. That is way better. I think that's happening because these were children of the parent object and boss, and when a child object collides, it still runs the collision trigger scripts here. So I think, having taken that off, yeah, see now my death wall on the bottom is staying there. Oh, and my boss is flipping out. He got really stuck for a little bit there. All right. So, well, I think it's doing the same thing. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, so what I can do, let's leave that. This is for guided bullets. This is for non-guided. So what I can do is, again, it's better to use tags to check collisions, but names are fine at this point. So let's do this. If, okay, let's set up a variable because we're going to use this more than once. Just call it other object equals other.gameObject.name. So am I doing that just to save code? I am not. By creating this, I can now use functions inside that string class like this. If other object name contains death, then, I mean, I could debug log, or, you know, we don't want to do anything else. And it's the same code. I could put these in a function. We're not quite there. I don't think trigger stay is actually hitting, but I could find out by saying on trigger stay. Because so often it's really good to have theories about what's going on. It's even better to put in a debug statement and then go, oh, now I know exactly what's happening and why. So the bullet boss for guided bullets and non-guided bullets, the guided bullets colliding, I will not run into that problem again. Certainly not with this project, probably not in the future. And I've learned something in the future that, oh yeah, so if child objects collide, it's going to trigger the collision scripts, you know, even from the boss. So, but now I know why it happened, so I'm way less likely to repeat it. All right. It's about to get fun. I mean, hopefully it's already fun. I'm having fun. Hopefully, if you're having fun, just drop a comment. All right. All right. So it did destroy the floor, but it's not destroying the death wall on the bottom, which is exactly what I wanted. And apparently we are hitting some on trigger stay, probably because this is a big, thick thing. It's probably hitting both. It's hitting death wall bottom, and then, well, okay, so it's hitting that, and then it's going into that, and then it's destroying. So that's fine. So here we are stuck. Click that and see it's just going 5 minus 5, 5 minus 5. There's ways around that. It's going too fast. So maybe we switch that to be every 2 seconds. The do reverse. All right. Here's where it's gonna get really cool. Really cool. All right. Watch this. It's gonna be great. All right. I'm gonna change this. Well, yeah, I'm not gonna change it. All right. So our boss code. We've got the boss code, the shooting speed, the random reversal, the boss shooting, firing bullets, do reverse, all this stuff, right? Watch this. This is cool. What if we duplicate this to say enemy? And I'm going to move it down. I'm going to give it a different color. I'm going to take that orange and make it like a yellow. I like simple colors. It's fine. Doesn't matter. And so enemy now is going to be yellow. Yellow. Right. And boss bullet enemy. Just really now just enemy bullet, but it's fine. This town needs an enemy. Right, that's good. That's good. And let's make that to be minus 10. I don't actually know how this is going to work because, again, I don't rehearse these. I've done this stuff in the past, but you know, I want you to be able to kind of see and hear the thought process. That's why I'm doing this. I want you to learn to think like a game developer. Bringing ideas to life is a superpower you can absolutely learn because I've learned it and I've taught it to other people. So what I'm going to do, if you're like, hey, what is he going to do it? He is going to do it. Yeah, watch this. So now, got an enemy. So now instead of spawning the bullets, he's going to spawn the enemies. And the enemies are going to spawn the bullets. It's crazy talk, I know. All right, so I'm going to make this enemy, I'm going to make it like a little bit shorter. I want it to look a little different. That's probably good. And then the enemy bullet, I can zoom in on that. It's also going to be sort of like that, but let's make it turn on. Yeah. I don't hate it. That could work. A little bit more like this, and a little bit longer. So that'll be interesting. All right. Let's see if this works. And I guess I need to turn enemy off as well. So yeah, now we're not using boss bullet anymore. Let's save that. I'm going to hit play. Okay. And this is where all my code, this is where using the names is not as good. What I ought to be doing inside of this is checking for the player or the boss. I guess what I can do, But I'd have to be looking for boss or enemy or player. Really, that's what I ought to be checking. Because, well, let me think. I probably ought to have something different on my bullet script than that. Actually, I think if we do this, because I don't want those to be moving along with the boss in synchronicity. No. I think that'll fix it. At some point, I will have to clean up my collider code. Okay. Well, it kind of throws it out there. I think my boss is completely gone off the rails at this point. That's fun. All right. Okay. For now, let's remove the death on touch. I should have a different code on my I should have a different piece of code on my bullets. And over here, I'm setting a trigger. What happened was it spawned the enemy inside the boss. It deleted the boss, and then the collision happened and sent the enemy flying over here. So let's try that. So that's better. Now they are raining down bullets. But the other thing that I want is I want the enemy to come flying down towards the boss. So what I can do is I can take that bullet script, right? Keep accidentally pinning. I can put that in. Or could even copy the, I guess I've got Space Boss here. What I wanted to do is move down the screen and then maybe reverse. For now, I'm going to go ahead and put the bullet script on here, which is not super named for being on here, but it will accomplish what I want right now. And this is, again, you know, welcome to game development. So if that moves at -10, I want to move this at like -5 or something. It should not move nearly as fast as the bullets. So it's going to move downward because of this script. And it's going to move side to side. Now, you know, would I actually code this if I was coding this in production and not teaching? No, yes and no. To some degree, yes. I'm not going to package all these things up into one script until I need to. I'm just not. I'm still prototyping. I'm still figuring out what I want the game to be at this point. And it's important. And it's not as important to have super clean code when you're prototyping that. That's what I want. That is getting much more interesting. So I think the enemy bullets are moving a little fast, and now I need to start checking, you know, for collisions and stuff like that. But I think that is a really good place to stop for today. Save that. Hop back over here, and yeah. So code's always available. Superherocoding.com. Sign up on the email list. Once I get a day and time nailed down, I will be posting when these happen. Probably going to be Thursday or Friday, sometime in the morning, something like that, because that fits my schedule pretty well. Let me know what you think. I'd love to hear feedback. If you want the art and code assets, go to superherocoding.com and grab them there. First week's always free. Other stuff is very inexpensive during the current month. And that's it. Next time we will clean up the existing code, package it up a little better, make the bullets work a little better, probably start working on the game manager, some score, some more logic, and should be good. So thanks for watching. I'm Greg. We'll catch you next time.